Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good.
So, John Breen, you got in contact with me a couple of weeks ago. I'm not really sure how you found me, but I'm glad that you found me because we've been doing some healing work. So, you are an energy healer. So, would you tell me a little bit about how you got started with your energy healing?
Well, it's interesting for myself. I didn't believe in any of this whatsoever. I thought it was for, I'll be honest with you, kind of flaky people. I thought it was for people who had nothing better to do at the time, to be quite honest with you. And that's the honest to God truth. Only to find out, no, it's not so much like that. So I wasn't really looking for this knowledge. It kind of came knocking on my door, literally. Uh, Going back, I would say 2005, got married and we bought an old house. And it was like an old wooden house, and it needed a lot of work. It was a fixer upper. So really started to, let's say, unravel. So, of course, we moved into the house and things were happening in that house that, let's say, didn't make sense. Things that would happen in that house that, from a logical point of view, didn't make sense. And like in the movies, you see in the movies when stuff happens in a house and they run out the house. Well, let me tell you something. When you're paying on the mortgage in that house, you're going to work it out. You know what I mean? So essentially, what happened was, you go through this whole guessing game and try to understand what's this all about? Why is it happening to me? What's going on? So, I mean, I could get into strange things were happening, and then you get on this whole quest. And essentially, one of the things that were happening in this house was there was I guess, a ley line going through the door, the front door, and along the side of the house. So there was, like, I would say, some type of portal that was there. And I learned about this from people who, I guess, what you would say, gifted people who came into the house. And when they came into the house, and they were not connected to each other in any way, shape, or form. And they would say, there's a portal right there, and you've got an energy line going through the house this way and that way. And it says, okay, so what do you do with that? Well, you can either meditate or you can do all different types of stuff with it. So this really opened up, I would say, a infinite possibilities. I would say, yeah, infinite possibilities.
So how did you realize that you had this ability? I mean, oh, you got the house, and there are some strange things going on. But so is it through your meditation that you started to realize that you have some ability with it? I mean, and do you think it's only because of the house, or do you think you would have had the ability without the house?
Well, I would say that, looking back with the knowledge that I have now, I would say that everything happens for a reason. I'd say that there is so much intelligence that we are not aware of. That in some capacity, the house is meant to be there, and I was meant to go through that experience.
Hmm.
So it's a bit of a hard question to answer, really, because if I could just say, like, when I'm working on people, there is so much intelligence. You wouldn't believe how much intelligence there is going on outside of the sphere of what we understand. So, in regards to the house, I believe it was meant to happen. Just like this transmission, as we're talking now, I believe this was meant to happen. And I believe that a lot of the stuff has already happened, and we're just filling in the content every day that we get in. And the really nice thing about that is that when you have that perception, there is no fear. It takes away fear. You're just filling in the content every day that you get up. When, even from anyone's position, that is the truth. You are filling in content every time you get up. Um, how can I say this? So I'm in the house, and then I had a lady, and she came to see me because, like, a lot of stuff happened in the house, and I recently met her. So she came to the house with another guy, and the guy who wrote the book, his name was Jason Quit, and he came out with the book later. And anyway, it was really interesting because at the time, so I'm at the house, and then they says, "Okay, John, we'll let you go." And prior to that, they're just about to get in the car, and then, so she says, "Here's what she says to me. She says, you were in Rome, and she says, and you were banned from doing your work. And she says, someone back then had got coins on your hands and put some type of coins on your hands and wrapped them around your hands so you couldn't do your work." And I'm kind of taking it with a pinch of salt. I'm going, all right, whatever, I'm kind of like going with the flow. Now it's interesting because then she gets into the car, and I'm saying goodbye, and I'm standing outside the door to say goodbye to these two who get in the car. And I had my hands in my pockets, and all of a sudden, it was almost like an activation, if you want to say, the best way I can describe it. And my hands just got extremely hot. Now, that used to happen when I was a kid, and I could never understand why, but this experience was like exacerbated in each hand. But getting back to when I was a kid, I would be in company and my hands would get very warm. And I just thought, I didn't even mention it because I just thought, I guess it's your body doing whatever it does. So I didn't really challenge that. But when she had, she had taken these etheric coins off my hands, and from that point forward, it seemed to have opened up type of channel in my, I guess my etheric body, I would say. But that might have kind of have a lot to do with that. I had a lot of different experiences like that. When I had eclipse behind my eyes, I had so many experiences that you really, from a logical point of view, it's very difficult to explain. And then what had happened was I was working with someone, and he was sitting in front of me, and I would raise his vibration, raise his frequency. And what that means, so basically it means I'm holding someone's energy. So I was holding his energy, and I had the ability at the time, and I still do, whereas when I'm working on someone, the essence of who they are, I could really raise the vibration extremely, extremely high and have a lot of access outside of the form, outside of the physical form. And it gives us a lot of access. So for about 9 months, I worked with this guy, a mutual friend who was gifted, and all this while, I was looking at this guy that I'm working with thinking, geez, I wish I could do that. That would be great. What am I doing? But at the time, it's kind of like you're looking at it and you're saying, well, why can't I do that stuff? Because that's what kind of happens when you wake up. You go, well, I wish I could do that. And I wish I could do this. But you're not really focusing on your own type of gifts, which is rather silly. Anyway, as he's channeling this, and I would say different ETs were coming in. As these different life forces were coming in, they were giving me gifts constantly, he come to see me for about 9 months, maybe every week for 9 months. And through that whole process, Jason's given me these gifts as he's channeling these ETs, and I just kept on building up this knowledge. And then I guess in some capacity, a lot of those gifts that I have, I get a lot of them from that experience. And also, I can lie down in my office and also get downloads. I know it might sound rather odd for a lot of people who are not used to hearing this knowledge, but I can get downloads constantly, upgrades, all that type of stuff as I'm working on people, So.
Can I ask you about the upgrades actually, and the upgrades, downloads? Is it, yeah, I mean, they're quite sort of new words, aren't they, really? But I do know what you mean. I just want to ask you, how does that feel for you? Is it something that you can put words to? Can you understand it in words, or is it something other? How would you describe it?
Well, I would say it almost feels very physical. Like, as I said, in my office, sometimes I'll sit down, or I'll describe that, and I'll describe when I work on people. It's very similar. So it's almost like I said, it's going to sound odd, but I'll be as transparent as I can to try to show you my truth. And it's almost like they open physically, if you want to say. Sometimes it feels like it's a physicality, and it opens up, and you can feel nodding or moving around different, almost like bringing in new light codes, or I would describe it as perhaps new light codes, and they would just the way I can't give you any definitive intelligence in that, but I could just say that I can feel a lot of prodding around in my brain, around the pineal gland, all over. It's almost like it's getting rewired quite often, all the time. And you can almost feel it physically. You can almost feel it being, your head being prodded. But I find that also when I'm working on people, they have that same experience. So when I'm, let's use the word deprogramming. When I'm deprogramming someone, because I believe that we are incredible beings. And I think we're negatively programmed on a constantly. And I don't think we really know our own personal power. I think we're incredible beings. I think we are multidimensional beings is what we are. And I think we've been dumbed down. So getting back to when I'm working on people, they will feel something very similar. And they will feel when I deprogram every cell in the body, or the atoms or the molecules, I'll reprogram them with new light codes as I have got. And they're describing to me, as I'm working on them, my experience also. So that's why I can relate to when they're getting downloads, or they can feel stuff moving around. I had one experience, and if you go to onto YouTube, you'll see a lady by the name of Anna, and she had fertility issues. And she's describing the whole thing to me, and they're going in the head and changing the chemicals. Now, interestingly enough, the lady that I did work on this particular session that I did, she's telling me about the pineal gland and all of these glands, and she was a nurse and she watched the whole operation, And it's very often to watch when I'm working on someone that they'll see the whole operation take place, and they'll describe it to me, and they'll describe that, let's say, sometimes it'll be like a human form, and sometimes it will be a more advanced intelligence, let's say that. And they will describe these advanced intelligences that will be in the room assisting, and they'll feel it on a physical body. And interestingly enough, sometimes, let's say you have a daughter. So let's say I'm going to work on your daughter. I'll have you in the room, and I will hold your hand, and I will hold your daughter's hand, and you and your daughter will watch the operation. You will experience it, because for me, it feels a bit better that you're in the room, because there's a lot of things that, from a human perspective, you can't really put into words. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I get whatever I'm asking for, and my success rate is probably about 90 to 95% on a cellular level and non-cellular level, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we had a few sessions ourselves, didn't we? I think we had 3 sessions over the last few weeks. And when you talk about the other people that you've worked on, I'm a bit jealous that I didn't get to see anything. But I'm a very hard nut to crack. I mean, I can't be I can't be hypnotized. I tried, So I think I don't like I believe in this stuff. I believe absolutely in energy work. I do Reiki myself anyway, but there's also I think maybe an overdeveloped desire to put everything into words and to understand it properly. And so I always keep some kind of skepticism in what I do, which may probably hinder some of my experience. I'd say it probably does. So that's something that I definitely need to work on. But what I found with the sessions that we had was that I felt really good afterwards. I felt it was good to talk and discuss. I was able to get to use. It felt like a very sort of light meditation that I was under. That's how it felt. And but yeah, I didn't have the operation. Unfortunately, I didn't see the operation, and I didn't see the ETs. But I'm hoping that next time I get to see them.
Well, we'll give another shot at the can. It's interesting. Sometimes the room will be full, this physical room, but it's interesting. What you have to do is so you have your form room, your form room, and then you have to create a non-physical room to work in, because you have to create, I guess, if you want to call it a sacred space or whatever words you want to say. So you have to go from form to non-form. You have to accept that you're going from form to non-form too. Yeah, no, it's been quite the ride. I find that, like, it's interesting. I think that what a lot of people need now, like, of course, in this time of confusion and transformation, I do a lot of work with removing emotional attachments.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel right now that this big, like, frenzy going on, because a lot of people are so afraid. And what people don't realize, I find, and as I'm bringing this to the surface, I'm bringing it not from a position of fear. So let me be clear on that. More from a position of taking this knowledge and to understand, to have a better understanding of what's going on. So I'm going to share this knowledge with you if it can be of any use. So, of course, we think that we're on top of the food chain. Well, maybe and maybe not. There's a lot going on outside of what we don't know. Now you could get a better example if you go on YouTube, and you'll have people talking about the anxiety and depression being food for other beings, let's say. And it's very, very true from my experience. It's been very, very true. Interestingly enough, when I'm working on someone, these things will run around the body. So if I'm pulling, so let me be clear, it's a non-physical, as we would understand it, entity being. So, and these things feed off human emotions. So when you suffer from anxiety, depression, any of these things are just feeding. Not only do they do that, they'll also, I would say, influence you or influence your decisions. So they influence your decisions, then you beat yourself up, and then they feed off you. I've seen that many, 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 many times, not only when I'm pulling them off people or destroying them, but also I also did one, and it was actually, he had arthritis. And as we would know it in human form, we'd say arthritis, but it wasn't attachment. It's definitely attachment. So I think we should start focusing on these type of beings and how to get rid of them. And it's not as hard as you think it is. A lot of people are like, well, if you can't see it, then, how can I address it? And let me tell you something. Your real power is not your five senses. So you can just drop that whole story right now. Your real power is outside of this frequency. So when you think that you might be powerless against these lower frequencies, no, quite the opposite. That's when you step into your power. That's when you're away from all these programs from the media. That's when you step into your power. And when you locate these things, these energies, that's when you're really stepping into your personal power. And these things are really, really nothing. It's just that they're covertly hiding, if you want to say. And they can hang around, especially in the stomach area, under the feet, all over the place. And these things are playing havoc right now. And maybe in some capacity, maybe I could do a session, if you will, live. You can stream it live, and I'll indicate and I'll show what it looks like either on yourself or someone that you would like to, maybe one of your listeners, and show how easy it is to get rid of these things. And it is easy. It is easy. And right now, it's needed so much, because it's like a buffet right now of fear. And once we get rid of these, and the knowledge is out there more mainstream, people are going to start regaining their own personal power, their own real estate of who they are. And I really feel that this knowledge has to get out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been, with Reiki. I mean, there's a lot of kind of not study, but a lot of the practice is about attachments as well. So I know that whenever when I do Reiki on other people, sometimes within their chakras, I can feel sometimes where there is some darkness and where there is some energy, and there is that thing of kind of pulling it out. And I guess, I mean, you think of attachments, the way that I would think of it, it's almost like it is a human form, some kind of shadow type darkness, or so. I mean, that's how my imagination would perceive it to be. I guess when I'm doing Reiki and I've got my hands on someone and I can feel that some kind of darkness, it is all imagination, and it is about the intention of taking it away from that person as well, and also letting them know what you're doing, because once they know as well, they can release whatever that thing is as well. Yeah, it's a strange thing, I guess, because we can't see it, and it's not mainstream. People are scared of it, but yes, I do believe we are dumbed down. I think that we don't have the capacity for what we are capable of. And perhaps if we had as we were babies, many years ago, if we weren't given so many vaccines, if we were in the right environment, perhaps there'd be some other new senses that we'd have, new abilities as well. Maybe not new, actually, maybe very old, possibly very, very old. Maybe the ability to lift things without touching by using our senses. I've got actually a few people on the group who are going through an awakening, and I mean, like myself, when I first had my own awakening, there's also this kind of this boost of kind of psychic abilities, which is quite unusual. It's quite unusual if you're not used to it. And I've got one guy who is just starting to master the art of moving things with his mind, which is pretty amazing. And then I've got others who kind of let me know that they are, that they have some, slightly all of a sudden this, turmoil, dark night of the soul, but also this new ability to do things, to access higher frequencies, like you say, that they're more in tune with themselves. They've gone inside of themselves, and now they can access who they are, but also other realms as well, other beings. Some people have spirit guides. I don't have spirit guides. Apparently, one guy who can access other realms says that I don't have any spirit guides. I wonder, do you know anything about spirit guides?
Well, it's interesting. I would say that, okay, so think of it as the words that you use, the lexicon that you use when you're talking to anyone. Like you use a certain amount of lexicon and your phrasing and all that, and that's how you communicate, right? And it's kind of like, to give you an example, when I'm working on someone might say to me, John, I go, yeah. He goes, there's an angel, and he's at my foot, let's say. And I'd say, oh, okay. So, and I'll describe him to me and all that type of stuff. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And some other people will say, well, you know what, John, I see this. It's a different energy, and they'll say it's kind of it's ET, or they'll describe different life forces. And I hear so many different beings in this room. And like I said, these beings will be, some of them are humanoid, and some of them are non-humanoid. And so I think it all, getting back to the whole lexicon thing, it all depends on your interpretation. So you might, depend on what your program is, or the closest program that you might have, you might say, like, let's say you were grown up in some denomination where there's angels, and you might see something as an angel, because that's what your mind will say, and so on and so forth. So you do get a lot of that. And in regards to spirit guides, I believe that if you feel you have spirit guides around you, then you do. I believe that if you connect to your higher self, I believe you do. I believe that you're constantly creating, and I don't think anything is wrong. I mean, like, I just work with light and love. I mean, that's just that's the way I've got it set up 100%. Because I just work from the heart, right? But yeah, I think that, why? I see, for myself, I didn't read a lot of books on this. A lot of what I've done is hands-on experience, because I'm a very poor reader and very poor writer. So a lot of my experiences is not read. I might have gone on YouTube and learned from that point of view. But I think in some way, it's not been an easy life. But I would say that in some ways, it kept me away from the regular programs that people were reading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E, all of this linear type of thinking. In some ways, it kept me away from that. And I think in the long run, I think it kind of give me access in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said this to you before, but I see this. I don't know if it's dyslexia that you have, or it could be something similar. But I know that with a lot of children that I've worked with who are dyslexic, they are so creative in other ways. It doesn't keep them down. The only thing that will keep them down is if they're not able to express their creativity. That's the only thing. But yeah, you're right, absolutely. If you weren't exposed to the kind of, even the language, the way that we set up our language now, it's kind of like a deformation of language as well. And so all of the language that we have, it creates patterns in our minds as we continue to read. So if you can't, then you are able to maybe create from yourself, which is a lot better from your own perspective. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, think about like someone who might be visually impaired, but they become a piano tuner because they really rely on the ears so much. And I guess you would say in that capacity.
Yeah.
And it does open up your imagination for sure, because you are carrying a program, reading, writing, all this type of stuff. So, and I think a lot of people perhaps who might be in the same position misunderstand themselves and don't realize that, and they're very hard on themselves. I know I was extremely hard on myself. No one could beat me up more than I could. I mean, I think that's a lot with most of us, isn't it, really? But yeah, and so you buy into that whole victimization thing, and then you start to, instead of going into instead of going into the problem, I guess when you put the wide angle lens on everything, and you start to get a better perception of you in the picture. And I think it really you can see the way things start to move, and you start to accept yourself for who you actually are.
Mm. So you said that you work from light and love.
Yes.
I mean, there's this idea about love and light. It's become a very sort of popular term, hasn't it? Love and light. And I remember putting a post on my group, I don't know when it was, love and light, kind of taking the piss out of people that say love and light at the end of the sentence, because
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm too dark. Who knows? I don't know. But as I was saying to you before, there is love and light. There is, and that's the place to express from, and that's to keep our kind of, that's where we want to be. That's our goal, and that's where we should be every day, really. But then it doesn't materialize, for me anyway, unless you look at the darkness. So I mean, with my kind of, the work that I do with shadow work is all about kind of bringing up some of those darker emotions. And I wonder what you think of this, because I've been recently working with this anger. So I've been feeling quite angry last week, a bit angry, a bit frustrated. I'm at home. I'm having to homeschool. I haven't got any time. I haven't, all these complaints that I had. I can't go out very, very long, apparently. And I'm pissed off with all this, the social distancing nonsense. People walking away, and for me, no, I don't do that. So, and just watching actually how the divide, the great divide between people. You have the people that absolutely believe what's been said in the media, and then you have the others who are maybe more like me, who will question what's really happening. And then you see the way that they fight, the language that they use. It's like they get offended when somebody else disagrees with them. And I put a post on, not a post, it was a response to someone, not on my groups, that it's really about the language that we use, because everyone, we're all here together. There is a big divide now. I mean, I see that, but we have to try to encourage people with our language as well, and not just kind of like sort of shout at them, and try and say to them, like, have a look and do your research. And I know that you're also quite interested in sort of, I guess the truth movement, or that you're at least quite open-minded about what could be possibly the end game of what's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so sorry, I started off this rant about, but we're at this stage, and so the whole thing is about looking at your dark side, and so I guess in terms of energy, you would be kind of going back into some very, very dark places. Like today, I did some artwork, and it was all about the anger that I felt many years ago when I was 13, and I stopped talking for a few weeks. Yeah. And so recently I've noticed that when I'm angry, instead of kind of verbalizing it straight away, I get very quiet, and it's like a regression. It's a regression back to that. So recently I've kind of thought that it might be a regression to back to that. So I thought I need to look at this. And so in going back into those feelings, the first time that I did it, and I did my active imagination with it, I was able very quickly to get back to that headspace of where I was when I was 13. um, I was able to feel the anger and the frustration, and the words that were happening at the time, and they were all from, it was one parent to one parent. It was like my words were their words, actually. So it was like the argument that they were having became my argument, became my gripe, my problem. And so I started writing down, and it was quite strange how quickly I could get back into that emotion. And so perhaps energetically, I wonder what you think of this, but does it mean possibly that the energy of that emotion has obviously stayed with me in some kind of way, in some kind of attachment, possibly? What do you think of that, first of all?
Well, I think, getting back to the whole light and love thing, I mean, to be honest with you, I get a bit sick of hearing that as well, to be honest. I mean, it's said like it's someone just put it on a Hallmark card, it's so, have a nice day. It's just so, oh, come on, really? I can do without it. I know, like, for myself, I know that when I say it, it's come from a position of you got a lovely home. No, it's not come from that position at all. But I would say that, like when you talk about darkness, I think contrast. Right? I think a contrast. That's the way I look at it. And life's full of contrast in every capacity, I would say. It's interesting you should say that. I remember I did work on a lady, and you'll see the interview online on Awakening Health Within. And anyway, I brought her back. It was I can't remember exactly what happened. You could probably check it out online. But I remember she went to heal herself when she was a younger girl.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what happened is the younger girl, and I remember she described it, and I don't remember the details, but she grabbed the woman. The child grabbed the woman by the face and says, "I'm here to heal you." So it was actually the child healing the. So I would assume that, limited programs as a younger girl to more programs. So this young version of herself healed her. Wow. So I can only really relate to that and say, like once you get outside of the third dimension, I can tell you from my experiences that there is so much access. And like I've described, not to say that I have a lot of respect for doctors and nurses and all this. I do. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but I do feel that the program, if you want to say, it's like a straw. The human program is like a straw, and we're looking at the health through the straw of what we've been told, this narrative of mental and physical health. And basically, once you get outside of the third dimension, you just flick the straw away, and the aperture of knowledge, as you get outside of the third dimension, just opens. And of course, you hear about this past, present, future thing, and you go, okay, yeah, whatever, because you just hear it everywhere. But until you've experienced it, you really can't appreciate it, because it's just words at that point. It's just a program. But when you know it, it's not me telling you. When you know it, you can't unknow that stuff. You can't unknow that. And I suggest that when I work on people, is to keep meditating. If you didn't meditate before, I've cleaned you up. Now you're responsible for keeping yourself clean. Keep yourself clean. Meditate. And this is how you're gonna, those seeds of new prosperous programs that everyone would want, those new codes, to keep them sheltered from, let's say, the programs of the third dimension. You've kind of got to shelter that. And how do you do that? Well, you would go into meditation, you would eat cleaner. to keep these old programs at bay, while these, if you want to call them seedlings, or the new aspects of you that are growing inside of you. But to do that, you got to light your own light of your heart to keep these new light programs within you growing. So there's a certain, I do believe there's a certain amount of responsibility, because here's a window of opportunity that you have. So here you go, here's this new knowledge. And interestingly enough, it's like, okay, now there's a responsibility that comes with that. Like, you got to understand, I think of it like this. I think of it like a garden. And so someone comes to have an experience either with me or someone, and think of, like, in life, it's like a garden, and then what happens is you plant your flowers in the garden, and you take it for granted, and you see these flowers, and they're great and they're lovely, and you smell them, and then if you don't maintain this garden, you're going to get weeds, right? And then what happens is, when you go, oh, it'll be fine, I can still see the roses, and then what happens is these weeds come up, and then after a while you have anxiety because you've forgotten what a rose is and what a weed is, and you don't want to make a decision, you don't want to pull the wrong thing, you've forgotten the difference. So what happens is this whole garden gets overrun, and then you get mad at yourself. So then let's say you come to see me, or you come to see someone else, and what happens is I go, okay, you know what? There's your rose. And you look at it and you say, thank you. Clarity. Okay, what do you do with that clarity? Okay, here's what you do with that clarity. You tend to your own garden. At that point, you've been shown what a rose is. If you forget what a rose is, you don't tend to your weeds, you can come see me as many times as you want, but you're not empowering yourself, you're empowering me. I don't want you to empower me, I want to empower you. I want you to pull the weeds out. So here's clarity. Look after your garden. And how do you take the weeds out? How do you constantly take all of these weeds out of the garden? You meditate, you keep yourself clean. The company that you keep, all of that stuff, it all makes a big difference. And that, once again, that insulates you from the lower frequency programs. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I see the same. You are right. It does make a difference as well who you hang around with, who you spend your time with, what you watch on TV, what you do with your time, how you do it, all that stuff. It does really matter. You spoke about coming out of 3D, and that your vision kind of becoming clear. You get clarity. You can see a lot more when you're kind of out of 3D. So are you saying that when we meditate, we are out of 3D when we meditate?
Yeah, I would say that's, yeah. I'd say that your consciousness expands greatly, and like you're using your breath to assist you. You're shutting down your eyes, right? So from a visual point of view, you are knocking that off, and what are you doing when you're doing that? You are opening up the aperture of your sixth sense, like shutting down the other ones. And let's say for example, you might want to burn some incense, or you might want to listen to some chants or any of that stuff. So you're basically saying, I still got these, but I want to program myself to get outside of the third dimension. So you might put on like an Om chant. So you go, okay, so I've got that covered. And then you might put on, and then you close your eyes and you go, okay, I got that covered, right? And then you get your tongue and you put it up to connect the energy, and you go, okay, I got that covered. And you burn some incense and you got that covered. So all of these other programs that are going on, you are programming them to assist you to open up the aperture of your sixth sense, right? So you're programming them to say, okay, blast off, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, I find also like the power of intention as well when you're meditating, to do all of those things, to have, like, as you said. I mean, I quite like to sit in silence, but so silence is really for me the good thing, and then also to burn some sage, but also to the intention of what do I want to get out of this? What am I trying to release from this? And also the breath work, which I find very difficult. I've got like an aversion to it, but I know it's good. I know that when I do it, I feel good, but I've got an aversion to doing it because it's hard. I find it hard to be kind of like breathing very, and then I can get dizzy with it. And but I know that that when I do that, I do feel better. So it's just about maybe taking the time out for yourself and having the intention, what am I going to be releasing with this? What do I need to kind of work on? And I think I'm not alone in that. I think a lot of people, they have the best intentions, they want to do it, they say they want to do it, but they just don't. And then, over time, it kind of things kind of get on top, as they did with me in the last couple of weeks with the whole anger thing. But I actually do think that there was, like you said, like with the lady that you dealt with, whose inner child was actually wanting to heal her. For me, my teenage self was obviously still there in some capacity, possibly in some kind of attachment energetically, and it was coming back up. And I do think also that the traumas that we suffer when we're younger, I don't believe that we can completely get away from them. I think that we can go back to them, we can transmute them, we can transform from them. But I think, like if you're saying, if when we don't look after our garden, and we start to kind of fall back into, I don't know, lazy forms of behaviour, or hanging around with the wrong person, or being in the wrong situation, the wrong relationship, whatever, those things can come back up again. Those traumas can show up again. I don't think that they can be completely gotten rid of, but I think that we can transform from them. What do you think of that? Does that make any sense?
But it's interesting. No, it's okay. I think it's hard to say really, because like when a lot of times when people will ask me questions, when I'm working on people, I never know where it's going to go. I never know where it's going to. I've got, I guess you could say, I've got like recurring patterns that will happen, whether it be attachments or any of that stuff. But every session is completely different, and of course every session is completely different, because your life stream, if you want to say, or his life stream, or whoever's life stream, is completely tailor-made to their experience. So I never know what I'm going to run into. I mean, I've done stuff where, it's like, like they're literally on the table and the back's arched, that whole thing, right? And I'm pulling stuff off people. I've had experiences where it's, where the interpretation of getting rid of these attachments that was going to be, it's going to be like this. It's going to be really difficult and really hard. And she's screaming at the top of her lungs. I'm going, oh my God, here we go, right? And we looked at it, and I said, now look, hang on a second. I says, you got to connect to your personal. You got to connect to your higher self. Don't do this from a limited point of view, from less knowledge. And once we connected her to, I would say, the big aspect of her own personal power, she was spitting these things out, these attachments. And not only was she doing this, empowering herself, she was, and here's the big thing, is enjoying the process, not being afraid of the process, being empowered. And when I work on someone, I think it's very, very important to leave the individual extremely empowered, educated, so they can sustain themselves. Because like anything, you get out there, and what I'm saying is like the garden. I use the analogy of the garden. I'm saying, here's the tools, right? Use these tools and don't be afraid. And you know what? Stuff's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. You might look back and say this or that, but you know what? It is what it is. Just, it's going to happen for anyone. But all I'm saying is, just get on with it. Just keep going, keep moving. You are not your experience, in my opinion. I think you're separate from your experience. And I have an analogy, and I'd like to share this with you. I've said this before, but I find it quite useful. I just find that you're traveling. Think of yourself separate from your experience. And when you have a better understanding of you are separate from your experience, you don't let these things attach to you as much. You don't, like, if I was in Europe for 6 months and I came back and I said, hi, I'm John, Italy, France, Belgium, people would go, John, what are you doing, man? And go, you're not Italy, Belgium, France, you're John. And I would say, well, no, I've been there. And he'd say, yeah, you've been there, but you're John. And the truth of it is that no matter where I go, what I do, I'm always separate from my experience, always. Good times and bad times. You know, bad times, right? Weed the garden, weed the garden. Good times, bring it closer. That's okay. Makes you feel good. I'm in for that, right? And it's interesting. I honestly believe, and you're an artist yourself, and we've discussed this once before, actually, of like your life being a work of art. And I truly, truly believe this. From when you're born to when you so-called die, which you don't, folks, in my opinion. So here's your life experience, and let's say you are a painter, and you've got your palette, right? And then you get you got your color palette, and you get your colors, and you're doing your whole thing. Because I've seen your work; it's beautiful, by the way, beautiful work. And so you're doing all of this thing, and when you go through a dark period, what you see, of course, if you're a true artist and you're given what you get on the canvas, you're just saying, here you go, this is how I'm feeling. And it's a true interpretation of the art form. You're putting it on. And I've said that when you go into an art gallery and you look in the art gallery of one particular room, and you'll see, the transformation of an artist, and you'll sit there and you look at all these art pieces. Well, I believe that just because you can't hold a brush in your hand doesn't make you or anyone else less of an artist. It means that you can't translate it on a third dimensional canvas. Yes, this is true. I agree with that. But I would say that the emotional, I would say the emotional palettes that people use, if you're going through a dark period or a blue period, then what are you using? You're going to use all of these darker colors, these emotional darker colors. And as you start to expand, and as you start to get more conscious, and you start to come out with these more emotional pastel colors, and you start to use them in your life as you're going through your life, I believe that our whole life is a complete work of art. And whether it be, let's define it as a good experience or not a good experience, it's you do need that. That's the palette of that's the emotional palette, I would say, that we have, and what we're working through or working in.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Everyone is an artist, and I think, yeah, I guess, I mean, what we consider to be an artist is someone who can translate what's inside, maybe, into what's outside onto a canvas. But then, as you said, everyone's life is a work of art. One thing you said there about you said that you're always separate from your experience. I was just thinking about that. I was just sort of reflecting that back on myself and thinking to myself, do I think like that? To be honest, I'm not sure if I can really get with that, because for me, I don't know if I can separate myself from my experience. At times I think I'd like to.
Do you think that's a program, though? Do you think that's a program?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, maybe that's something I need to meditate on, because because I guess, okay. So I'm just thinking back. I had a hospital procedure about a year and a half ago, and I remember that when they put me to sleep, and when I woke up from it, I remember when as I was waking up from, I don't know, a couple of hours I was put to sleep, and as I was waking up from it, I felt I was awake, but I was free. I was awake, but I was free from all of the my usual kind of thoughts, my usual feelings, my usual everything, my worries, my troubles, my complexes, my whatever, everything. So I did, and I was aware of that maybe a few hours afterwards. I thought, God, I remember when I first started waking up, I felt really, I was aware that I was waking up, but I felt I wasn't attached to any of my past for I don't know how long it was, maybe for a few minutes, I don't know. But I remembered that feeling, and perhaps that's something that could be quite useful at times. Actually, could be quite useful to try and separate, and especially during meditation. So I'm just kind of thinking and saying.
No, that's okay. No, that's fine. It's interesting as you were describing it. You're going inside your own head to the program, to the past, let's say, and as you were describing it, you were saying, my this, my that, my this, my that, my everyday this, or my and I'm going, that might be a program, right? It's interesting. Let me just share this with you. So when I work on someone, more often than not, let's say. So, I'll put them back in the body, right? I clean the cellular body up, and then I work all over the place with that. And then what will happen is, more often than not, I give them a glass of water because there's a lot of electricity run through the body, right? So they'll either bring their own water, or I'll say, you drink some water. You're going to be, because they are very dehydrated, because I've stripped a lot of lower frequencies off them. And of course, they'll do this and they'll have a little drink of water. And I would, definitely say more often than not, they will say, well, that doesn't taste like water. It tastes sweet, or they'll use the word, that tastes fantastic. Like words that you wouldn't describe drinking water, right? And you're going to go, well, and you see this pattern. And so what's happened in there, from my experience of working on people since 2005, they will have to go, okay, what is this? So it's a program and saying this, it's water, it's wet, it's it goes down here, and you feel it down on all this stuff. Not only will they have this experience, and then after a while, as they're starting to drink more water, they go, okay, now it tastes like water. And even when they get off my table, they will feel quite, depending on what the experience is, but they'll feel they've got to get readjusted to the body. Oh, here's the program of the form. Got to get used to the form. Also, when they open their eyes, not all the time, but from time to time, they will look at the ceiling. They open their eyes gently, and it's almost like they describe it as like liquefied, not in solid through their eyes. They have to say, okay, so let's get that program quickly get that program, and they go, okay, it's a ceiling. Is it a ceiling? And it's still moving around. And then as the program comes back into the human mind, then they kind of go, oh yeah, it's a ceiling. But sometimes that program takes a while to come back into the person I'm working on. Much like what you were talking about when you came back, those programs were kind of not in you. I don't know if that they weren't. I don't even know how to describe it. You weren't carrying those programs for a short time, and you felt the experience, the program was separate from you for a while. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Yeah. Well, look, John, you've done so much work for me the last few days, and the last few weeks, sorry. And I'm looking forward to the next time that we have a session, because I'm hoping to see something quite unusual. But the last time we did work, I remember. We kind of worked on some of the organs in my body. So we had a few sort of health things that I wanted to have a look at. And there was I could most definitely feel that there was some tension, or something was released there that has made me feel a lot better. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you talking to me today as well, John. So can you just tell me the name of your website? So if other people want to get in contact with you.
Sure. It's Awakening Health Within.
Right.
And as I said, so coming from the UK, of course, Liverpool, whether you're in Ontario, Canada, whether I'm working on you, and some people, it takes a while to get around this program, or whether it be someone in the UK or the US, when people say we're all connected, it's very, very much true. It's very much true. So you can get a hold of me at awakeninghealthwithin.com. And I guess we just take it from there, really. And
you're in Canada, aren't you? Because then people might think that you're in England because of your Liverpudlian accent.
I've been here for quite a few years. It's funny, I went back home to Liverpool last year. What a vibrant place. It's been a long time since I've been there. The people, you know what I've found? Here's what I've found, is the emotional currency, because this is all about emotional currency. This is the king. The king, cars, houses, all this stuff. I tell you right now, when you break it down, it's props. It's all props. The real currency is emotion. The real currency is emotion. Anyway, Liverpool is done so well, so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to all of this time frame that we're in now, to start to just leave, and as we get on with the new version of our society and who we are, it's an exciting time, I would say.
Well, listen, thanks so much, John, and hopefully I'll speak to you another time soon.
All right, mate, you take care. Thanks for everything, and have a great day. And thanks for everyone who's listening. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Take care.